RJ, there's 10 or fewer games left for all of these teams, and we have some actual exciting stuff going on in the standings in the playoff race. This has been kind of nice to have in both conferences. Now, maybe different styles of races going on in the two different conferences, but it's nice that this deep into the season we are having this level of standings intrigue.
Yeah, it's great. Meaningful games every day. I've been locked in. I mean, this is one of my favorite times of the whole season. I've got my charts and my standings things on my Excel spreadsheet all ready to go, updating it as the scores change every night, watching all the games. It is so fun. And yeah, I think it's partially a result of one conference being so good and the other conference, at least the race for the final spot, being so bad that it's just close all around. And you know what? It just works. For a neutral fan, it just works.
It definitely does. It definitely does. It's felt more exciting than in years past, just being able to follow this because there's so many teams still in it, it feels like, and you have so many divisions that are still kind of up for grabs as well. So it's not just who's going to make it, but it's also those division races, particularly in the Atlantic and the Pacific. The fact that there's multiple teams that can still reasonably win their division this deep into the season, with, some of these teams only having 8 games remaining. It hasn't always felt that way these last couple of years. So I'm really pumped about all this. But where do you want to start as we kind of break down what these playoff pictures are shaping out to be?
Right. So normally we always go West Coast bias, trying to counteract the East Coast bias that you normally get. But look, I don't think this Western Conference playoff race has earned it. I don't think they deserve it. It's
They
a
do
turtle
not.
derby, or as Connor McDavid called it, a pillow fight. I think we got to get to the pillow fight second. We got to start in the East, where there's some real heavyweights here contending for the last playoff spot.
Yeah, so there's the Atlantic Division that I already said is kind of up for grabs. Buffalo's got a 2 point lead on Tampa Bay, but Tampa with 2 games in hand. So gotta, that one's gonna come down to the wire and be really fun to watch. But then you go down to the wild card and what's going on there. And Boston has a tiny cushion. A 4 point cushion on the first wild card spot, but then Columbus, who's been on an absolute tear since making their coaching change back in January, is holding down that second wild card spot, RJ, but they only have a 1 point cushion over the Ottawa Senators and the Detroit Red Wings, who not that long ago were actually leading the Atlantic for a while. And now they find themselves outside the playoff picture. But all those teams have played 73 games. They all have 9 games remaining and only 1 point separating them. That is a fun, tight race between three teams that, frankly, I don't know that there is a clear favorite out of that other than maybe Columbus, just because of how they've been playing since Rick Bonus came in.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on fire, although they have lost their last two games.
Yeah,
With
so
any of these teams, you always have to wonder, is it starting to wear off?
the new
I don't
coach
think you
bump.
can really confidently say, right?
Yeah.
So but I do love the way they've been playing recently, but it's hard to say.
Yeah. Oh, you're not gonna go with your Ottawa Senators? Your
Look,
your pick for
okay,
years?
and well, here's the thing with the Senators. They are one of the top teams in the league, especially when you look under the hood at some of their advanced numbers and everything too. I mean, like a lot of the models and everything with playoff probability have them a higher Stanley Cup probability than some of the teams that are almost guaranteed to be in. They have been playing really well. The thing with Ottawa, I mean, it just like you look at their recent schedule, and I'm gonna like pull it up here to see, the game that they like the big game that they played. I want to make sure I have the score right. Um, but they like playing some key games here, and then Linus Allmark does not get the start against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Hmm.
They lose that one 4-2. It's their most recent game. A pretty pivotal game. Like it's so close in the playoff race and everything. James Reimer gets the start. They lose that one. I don't know. I just for a game like that, and I know this was questioned at the time among a lot of people, like why wasn't Allmark starting that game? And Travis Green said, "Look, I want to play Linus every night. We needed a rest. He wasn't available to start." I don't know. I do wonder about Ottawa, like if they've kind of reached that pivot mark with their starting goalie, and if you don't have the depth there, like if you're relying on James Reimer, I know he gets a win against the Islanders. I know he gets a win against the Rangers, but like I don't know, feels iffy to me.
Yeah, except all the goalies that Ottawa has played this year have been terrible. right? Like
Well, I know
you
that's of
look at
course what's holding them back. Yeah.
yes, I mean that has been the big problem with Ottawa all season long, and I mean right now it's also the blue line has been decimated by injuries, just out a ton of blue liners at the moment, so they're trying to make do um, back there. But really, the thing that has been holding them back all season long has been the goaltending. Because you are right, right? Like the analytics favor this team. They should be getting enough offense, right? They're 10th in the league in goals for. It's just the fact that they have a team save percentage of 874, which is not very good. I think that's 5-on-5 total team save percentage of 879, which is not much better.
Right.
Like
But that's the thing.
that's
That's where I
brutal.
think there actually is. And look, you look at Allmark with an 889, and I know there's better numbers to use to evaluate goaltenders. And we need to also remember, by the way, this year, I believe the league average save percentage is like
It is lower.
896. It's the
Yeah,
lowest it's
it's
been in a
super
long
low.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about why that is. I think that's actually might be interesting to look into. But 889 is not terrible. But then you look at, Reimer 880, Maryline 860. Like Allmark is a significant step up from any of the backups they've had.
Yeah, I mean, you look at quality start percentage, and Reimer and
That's a better
Olmark
one.
are close to each other, at least on Hockey Reference. Olmark at 548, Reimer at 545. So pretty equivalent there. Again, neither one that great though. Like you want your quality start percentage to be at least 600. I feel like if you want to be a playoff team from your top goaltender, and Olmark is not there. Yeah, I mean, not even quite close. Still sub a 5-5.
Yeah. No, I mean it's definitely less than you'd want to see. I'm trying to look at the starts like that Reimer's had to see if it's kind of he's had an easier go of it. He does get the Rangers, he got the shutout against Vancouver, so that does that
Yeah.
even count? But he has gotten some tough ones too. He got like Colorado, he got Carolina. So I was just trying to see if it because again, Allmark has played a lot more games too. I mean, look, no one's arguing that Reimer is anywhere near the level of
Yeah,
Allmark,
yeah,
right? Like,
no.
there's no point in looking at that. But I do wonder if they're gonna have to sit him and rest him for a significant amount of these final, what is it, like 10 games roughly for them, you know, you got to pick and choose your spots pretty smartly.
Yeah, I just for sure, as you always have to. I just don't know that it's gonna matter if they just can't get saves from whoever's back there, because that right now is the thing that's killing them. And I don't know how much of this is again the blue line is really banged up right now. Although of course all year long this has been a struggle for them, but I wonder how much of it is the system is not allowing a lot, and that's why the analytics look really good. But it does mean that when they are allowing something, they are not going to be, cakewalk saves that these goaltenders have to make, and therefore it's maybe harder for them to get into a rhythm because there's not as much volume there. Or when you are having to face an opportunity, it is kind of a more difficult save an ask of you, and that just makes it hard on a goalie. And over a season of that, maybe your confidence starts taking a little bit of a hit, stuff like that. I wonder how much of that is going on here behind the scenes for Ottawa.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Dylan, as we look at this, I guess how far down the standings, because like where would you say the line is now for where teams are definitely out of it? Obviously, Ottawa's still in it,
Yeah.
but Detroit obviously still in it.
Yep.
Philly, though, I mean, you look at teams that have been on a run recently, 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're playing in a way that's looking like it's going to potentially save their season. Are you ready to rule them out yet, or would you say they're still in? I mean, of course, mathematically they're still in, but like,
Yeah. No, they're still in it for me. For me, the cutoff is Washington. Washington's the first team that I would say is out of it.
yeah, I'd
They're at
agree with that.
83 points, so they're 4 points back, but they've played an extra game over Columbus, Ottawa, and Detroit. Philly has a game in hand on Columbus, Ottawa, and Detroit at 84 points. So I feel like that game in hand kind of keeps Philly in it. But for me, it's that sixth spot in the wild card race where Washington is that I say everybody below that, them included, is out.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And with Philly, I don't know. I'm having a hard time seeing them keep this up because you look at their recent run and kind of where the wins have come from. They got to play all three California teams and they
Mhm.
just swept through that. That's easy. That's as easy as it gets. But that's the end of that on the schedule. You got to win against Chicago, also Detroit, who's really faltering. I look at the wins and they're, back to maybe Minnesota, March 12th. They're not really quality wins since then. and the schedule seems to get a little tougher from here on out. So I don't know. I feel like they might still be pretenders here, just getting an easy part of their schedule out of the way at the right time to where they're still in it. But I don't know that I fully believe in them.
I don't either. I don't fully believe in the offensive production for them. I mean, they're a bottom 10 team in terms of goals for. They have a really, really rough power play. I mean, their power play percentage on the season is 15.31%. Like, that's, you probably shouldn't make the playoffs in a competitive conference, right? In the West, that's probably fine. But in the Eastern Conference this year, given how competitive it is, if your power plays, hovering around 15%, it's probably not going to be enough at the end of the day. I think Vladar has been great there. I think a lot of the stuff that Rick Tocchet has done in his first year has been really solid. I'm a big fan of his coaching systems. And I think that, some of this late season stuff is also just everybody really hitting strides when it comes to that sort of thing. I think Trevor Zegras bouncing back and looking like a legitimate center again, in the league is big for them. I think they have a lot of room to grow with Rick Tocchet next year, but realistically, probably this year, it's all going to be too much given how competitive the Eastern Conference is. They can still do it, but I do think like if I am like hedging how all of this is going to go down, Philly is my number one candidate to not make it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think with Philly, it's tough too because like you're trying to kind of push and go for it now with Rick Tocchet, and then of course you get stuck in this conference where look, you'd win the Pacific Division with
Right.
they'd be on track to win the Pacific Division if they were in it. But just it's going to be too tough this year. I guess the one thing they have going for them too is just the fact that I guess in the East they are in the Metro, and so you do have Pittsburgh, Columbus, Islanders. If one or two of those teams do fall apart, it's not as tough as the Atlantic.
Right, which Pittsburgh is starting to take they're starting to show some weakness. I mean, in the Eastern Conference, when you look at all of the teams battling for playoff spots, everybody has 6 wins, 6 or more wins in their last 10 games, with the exception of the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Detroit Red Wings. Like, all of these teams are putting on pushes. They are trying to get to the postseason. Again, very different story in the Western Conference where nobody wants to win a game and get to the postseason. But in the East, I mean, everybody is putting on legitimate pushes right now. They are trying, and almost all of these teams having at least two OTLs as well. So they are just accumulating points at a very fast pace, which they need to be able to get there. Um, the Red Wings are the last kind of team chasing a wild card spot here. We could talk about them. I mean, what a collapse for the Detroit Red Wings. Really, from the end of January or late January into the Olympic break and then post Olympic break, they are just they're losing more games than they can win, and that is just not gonna cut it in this Eastern Conference.
Yeah, and they're struggling to score. They're not. I mean, recently they've started giving up, some more goals, but I mean, they haven't been giving up a ton. They're just struggling to score. And I mean, they've really also. I mean, you look at how many starts in a row does John Gibson have for them? 3, 6, 7, 11 straight starts for John Gibson. I mean, they've really gone to him. I know he's been their number one goalie kind of most of the season, but really having to lean on him pretty heavily too. It does feel like it's falling apart a little bit. And it's tough because I think the Red Wings, like watching them earlier this season, they were legitimately good.
Yeah.
They were beating good teams. They looked good to the eye test, but recently that hasn't been the case. And I think part of it is the schedule maybe getting a little tougher for them, but still it's something they were able to overcome earlier in the season. I don't know, they did get a lot of their Western Conference teams out of the way early. It did feel like, and as we know, those are the easier ones.
Yeah, I think there's some element of that that goes into all of this because like analytics, they were probably outperforming what they should based on the
Mhm.
underlying numbers, and also just like if you just like pull up their team page, you've got good legitimate scorers at the top end of this lineup, and then there's just like no depth, right? Like look at their goal scoring leaderboard, and it's DeBrinket, Larkett, Raymond. Like that's fine. Those are legitimate players. And then James Van Riemsdyk, 36-year-old JVR, is your fourth highest goal scorer with 15 on the year, followed by a 37-year-old Patrick Kane. Like this is the problem is that you have nobody after that top group of players for you. And I think that ultimately at the end of the day, in a competitive conference, in a competitive division too, in the Atlantic that has been really super competitive, they just haven't had the depth needed to kind of keep pace when it comes to scoring goals.
Yeah. Do you think they might be regretting going after Justin Falk at the trade deadline? Because I don't think that's a bad move. He's still got a year left of term. Like I think they needed to add to that blue line. But if you're gonna do something like that and give up a prime asset, maybe you also want to look into a forward. I mean, I think about somebody like Bobby McMahon, just given the market for what the forwards are. And yeah, of course, no one thought he was going to score 7 goals at 8 games to start a Seattle career. That's not sustainable at all. But just given how cheap it seems like a rental forward like him might have been, maybe you also try and make a move like that. But on the other hand, at that time, it sure looked like they were pretty safe in the standings. Like the playoffs were basically guaranteed for them.
Right, and I think they wanted another like vet along the blue line for them that they could really lean on, and I think they wanted a specifically a puck mover who could play on that and maybe help out the offense a little bit. And it just has not worked for whatever reason. Trust me, I know he's on my fantasy team, Justin Falk. It's been a huge drop off since he's gone to Detroit. But I think like that was the idea was okay, we need another like veteran that we feel like we can give 20 plus minutes a night to, who can step into that spot from Axel Sandin Pellico, who's very good prospect but maybe not quite ready for this level yet for going into the postseason, and somebody specifically who can move the puck, because some of the other guys back there are not necessarily going to be big puck movers. Ben Sherratt, Simone Edvinsson. Edvinsson can do it, but it's not like the calling card of his game, right? And so I think that was the idea, was just by having another vet back there, shore it up a little bit defensively, and also bring in an offensive element from the back end. Maybe that helps the offense get going. But no, compared to just bringing in a forward that could score at it, even a 20 goal clip, I feel like, right, a full season 20 goal clip would have been huge for this group, because again, you're having to so heavily rely on guys like, guys on the wrong side of 35 to carry the depth scoring on this team. It's absolutely brutal. And you look at like JVR, 7 of his 15 goals this year are on the power play, right? Like you're just not getting 5-on-5 scoring really from most guys on this team. And that's just a huge problem for them.
Yeah, it's something to address this offseason if Steve Yzerman still is able to address it and have that job. I mean, you look at the progress that they've made, and they've certainly looked better this season. I don't know. I feel like if he's had this much leash, they probably don't let him go. But if they don't make the playoffs, I don't know, how safe do you think that job is?
I think it could be I think it could be on the block, just because yeah, you were in a really solid spot and then you fell out. And you could
Also,
say,
how
and
many
I know,
years do you need?
well, that's
Like
the
it's been
thing.
a long time.
Right. And a lot of the Iser playing guys are in this lineup, right? They're still young. A lot of guys are still like 20, 21 years old, but they don't look great. Like Marco Casper was a great prospect. He's got 17 points in 72 games. He's 21. Like he should be showing up and being able to be more of a contributor in your lineup. You really just look at a lot of the guys on this team, a lot of the young guys, with the exception of Emmett Finney. I mean, there's not a lot of them that are producing for you still. And at some point they have to start producing for you. I mean, Nate Danielson, 7 points in 28 games. He's had a lot of injuries, but again, 21-year-old first round pick. Like at some point you start and you need to capitalize on those players. And the other thing is, I mean, does he have another coaching change left? Probably
I don't
not.
think
He's
so.
he's already
No, I
been
don't think
through
so.
coaches, right? And this was my last question on Detroit for you though, is how much of this is the roster's just not good enough in a competitive environment? How much of it is Todd McClellan just, it's not even the playoffs yet, but it's a tight race and the pressure's there, and here we have a Todd McClellan team yet again crumbling.
Man, you're trying to bait me here because
Yeah, for
I will
sure.
take any excuse
I'm
I can get
definitely
to say,
definitely
yeah,
doing
that
that.
Todd McClellan is not a good coach. That said, I'm actually not going to put this on him because he's shown he can be a good regular season coach throughout the entire regular season. He can take care of that. He can get a team to the playoffs. The issue with him is when you get into a playoff series and you have the tactical matchups, the momentum swings, the big things like that, where he just mentally fragile teams. I know that could technically apply here. I don't think that's what it is. It's just, it's a really tough playoff race here, and they're not playing terribly, but just everyone else is playing so well. So I'm actually not going to blame Todd McClellan here. I think this is a
Okay.
problem of construction rather than coaching. But if they get to the playoffs and flame out, then look for Todd McClellan, because he's never going to do well in the playoffs. And yeah, I mean the forward drafting has been an issue. Yeah, like you said, Casper, Rasmussen, Nate Danielson. On D, I want to at least that's where the Yzer plan is
That
working.
has
Like
worked
Edvinsson,
great.
he's a player. He's looking great. Sandine Pellikka, he's looking great. So he can draft the D, but just the forwards are an issue.
Yep.
Looking at this race as a whole, because I think we've kind of covered a lot of these teams. I'm curious. I've got two questions for you, Dylan.
Okay.
First off, um, how do you hope this all shakes out? Because that's so much of the fun right now of watching all this, where it's all close and you have the playoff races, is rooting for something.
Mhm.
How would you like to see this shake out for whatever reasons you may have? Maximum enjoyment, entertainment. For me, that's generally what it is in the East. I just want to see something entertaining,
Yeah.
fun, but maybe some interesting storylines as well. I mean, maybe you want to see the Red Wings kind of flame out and someone besides Yzerman take the helm. Like, what do you want to see out of all of this?
I think the number one thing is I do want the Blue Jackets to make it. I
Yeah.
really felt like when the Kraken were just there and playing in Columbus, and one of the things that really stood out to me was how engaged that crowd was. Now it helped that they scored 3 early goals in that game and it got everybody very much involved, but just how energized that building was because of the run that the Blue Jackets are on. And this is a fan base that throughout the lifespan of the Columbus Blue Jackets has not had a ton to get excited about. You could tell that they were really embracing this moment and the run that this team is on. And, I feel like those fans deserve this. Right. And I feel like this group also deserves it because they're a really hardworking group. It's a really interesting collection of players that they have. And then, of course, also with the tragedy of losing Johnny Gaudreau not that long ago, too. Like, I just feel like there's a lot to be excited about for the Blue Jackets. So I do want them to hold on to that final wild card spot. For me, I think that's the thing that I'm rooting for the most because it's just a story that it feels like everybody could just get behind.
Yeah, and I'm with you on all those points. And yeah, that organization has had to deal with so much. Like, they need something good and they deserve something good. But the other reason I want to see Columbus make it is I think they should be rewarded for making the coaching change in a
Yep.
season where so few teams did. And so few teams could have saved their season by making a coaching change. Too many teams were afraid to do it. Columbus, who, I mean, we were talking about it when they made the change. We're like, we didn't think that was the team that was going to do it. They just didn't necessarily even make the most sense, but they were bold. They made the change that needed to be made, and they're getting rewarded for it. And I hope they're rewarded for it with a playoff berth. Whereas other teams like LA, Winnipeg, we'll see how Edmonton ends up going, but like that should have made coaching changes are still suffering for the fact that they didn't. So I think Columbus deserves to be rewarded for that. I'm with you. How about Pittsburgh? Now I know what you're gonna say. You're hoping Pittsburgh is in it. Crosby has one more run and all that sort of thing.
I
But
mean,
I go ahead.
no, I was gonna say. I mean, look, they're not gonna go anywhere if they make it. Other than then they might get out of the first round because right now they'd be looking at a matchup against New York Islanders in the first round. Like that feels kind of like a coin flip between those two teams. I mean, it's really a team that's going to play like wide open hockey in Pittsburgh, where it's going to be high event. There's going to be lots of goals to be had on both ends of the ice versus a team like the Islanders that it's a little bit more controlled and it's going to be low event. And so it would just be kind of fun to see which of those two kind of wins out over the course of a 7-game series, which I do think it would take at least 6 games probably in a series between those two, because I think just on any given night it could end up going one of those two directions and it heavily favors one of those two squads. So I think just from a pure entertainment standpoint, I think it'd be really fun to see that matchup. It'd be fun to see young guy in Matthew Schaefer going up against the veteran, Penguins teams, all the guys that they have on that team and stuff. So I think that would be a lot of fun. And because, like, I mean, who else would take the Penguins spot. I mean, Columbus could jump up
Columbus would be,
to third in the
yeah.
Metro, and then if the Penguins totally fall out, it means Ottawa or Detroit probably grabs it. I don't want those guys to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Detroit, I'm with you on that. Ottawa, I think could be really fun, and I think they've got the potential to go further if they get in. Like I would like to see Ottawa make it. I guess maybe Boston would be the team. It'd be hard, but like Boston would be the team to fall out in that case. I don't know. They're just not super interesting to me.
They're not.
So that's I guess what I would root for, even though it seems unlikely. Is Ottawa gets in, Boston falls out. I wouldn't mind the Islanders Penguins first round series. I think that'd be fun.
Mhm.
I guess I'd like to see how would this play out. Okay, so Columbus first wild card, Ottawa second wild card. Because I want to see Columbus and Ottawa. I want those to be the two like upset teams that I'm rooting for. Although, yeah, I want those to be the upset teams that I'm rooting for. This is interesting because look, I want Carolina to get upset in the first round. So
Yeah.
I want somebody to line up that's going to upset them because the Hurricanes are frauds. They're frauds
Yes.
every year. I want to see a team that can take them out in the first round. I don't know who's more likely there to be able to do it.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't know.
Columbus?
I'd have to look. I'd have to like look up the head to head.
You know, I put a lot of stock in the
Yeah.
season series record, so I'd have to go look and see what the season series is with those. But I want some wild card team that's going to maybe try and upset Carolina. On the other hand, looking at the Atlantic, because those
head to
top
head.
three could
Head to head
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
year, Carolina is 1-1 against Columbus. They are 2-0 against Detroit. They are 1-1 against Boston. And where is Ottawa? They are 2-0 against Ottawa.
Okay, so I guess Columbus.
So it is
I want
Columbus.
Carolina, Columbus.
And my guess is they probably have another game left against Columbus
Yeah,
as well at the end of
probably.
the year when all the divisions play each other. So
Okay, so that's what I want. I want Carolina, Columbus.
and they had
in
a
the first
negative goal
round.
differential in those games against Columbus as well, by the way. 5 goals for,
Ooh.
6 against. So Columbus does feel like the team.
Let's go. Especially with how well they've been on a run. Carolina hasn't had to worry about much in a while. They're still playing decently well because they've had just such a big lead on everybody. But as far as the Atlantic, like how do you, especially the 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic, how do you want to see that one shake out? Like, what's the series you want to see there?
Well, yeah, so that was the thing is that my 2 questions to you was going to be who wins the Eastern Conference and who wins the Atlantic, because it's such an interesting race here. I think Tampa ends up winning the Atlantic, and so we get a Buffalo Montreal series, which I think would be really interesting and really fun to watch because I think that could go either way pretty easily. And I think it's a huge deal for both of those two teams as well to not just make the playoffs, but also to try to win a playoff round. I think that's a huge deal for both teams that, kind of younger squads, not a ton of playoff experience for these two groups. I think that would be a big deal for them to try to say like, look, we are taking that next step and to have that kind of under their belt. So personally, I not only do I think Tampa's going to end up winning the division anyway, I am rooting for a Buffalo Montreal first round matchup.
I love that first round matchup. And believe me, I would watch all however many games it would be. That one would be number one priority. I would turn that one on for sure. The sad part is that one of those teams would have to go home after the first round.
Yep.
And I would hate that about it. Like I don't know who even I would root for that, and that's what makes it tough. Like I prefer series where there's like a clear team that I'm rooting for. There, I just want both teams to have fun, but both teams can't have fun. It's the playoffs. Somebody's got to go home in the first round. And so like I get what you're saying. I would love that series. I would love that one of them would get to move on. And I think I'd probably be, if I had to pick, rooting for Buffalo just because those fans deserve it. They've been waiting for so long. But I don't know. It would have that downside to it. Whereas if you get, say, Buffalo versus, Boston or whoever else makes it, then you can kind of cheer for Buffalo pretty clearly. And then like Tampa, Montreal, you got to go for like Montreal, probably the younger, more exciting team, all that sort of thing. But then they'd really get beat up too. Cause that's the other thing too, is like, who do you want to come out of the, at the Atlantic? And Tampa is going to take a chunk of flesh out of whoever they play. Certainly if they're in that 2-3 matchup.
Right. I think Tampa comes out of the Atlantic kind of no matter what, because I don't think any of the teams that we're looking at wild card wise are going to be good enough to upset them. And I think that the playoff inexperience of Buffalo and Montreal is not going to be able to be enough to get Tampa out of it.
I don't know about that. I
I
could
know
see
they look
Tampa even
terrible,
potentially out in the
like
first round. No,
defensively.
they look terrible defensively right now, and all it takes, like again, Victor Hedman was out. All it takes is an injury there or something. That blue line does not have very much depth. Offensively, they've got a guy like Darren Radish who's putting up a great season points wise, but defensively, I mean, we just had the chance to see
Hmm.
Tampa and Buffalo because they were playing the Kraken. Tampa looked really bad defensively. And Vasilevsky didn't look in condition to save them at all. And I don't know that he would in a playoff series. Like I could see Tampa potentially being out in the first round.
Yeah, but then you factor in the fact that I think yes, depending on what the wild card matchup is, because
Mhm.
I don't have more faith in the Montreal or Buffalo defense. Because that's the
Yeah.
other thing, right? Like, because that's what we would be talking about. If they have to match up against one of those two teams, do you legitimately think Montreal or Buffalo could beat Tampa in a playoff series right now?
I think they could.
Okay.
I do think they could. Because again, it's not like blue line versus blue line. I just think the group of forwards could maybe take advantage of the Tampa blue line maybe slightly more than the other way around. And the Tampa forwards could take advantage of the other. Like I think it'd be a close series. I think it'd be a back and forth series, but I think it could happen. The other thing with Montreal too, as we look at the standings here, like I know they're 6 points back of Buffalo, they're 4 points back of Tampa. We're kind of just taking for granted that they can't really win the division. They have been the hotter
They
team of the
could.
three.
Yeah.
They faced Tampa twice in their final 10 games.
Hmm.
So they've got just the 2 games head to head. I know they've lost both games to Tampa already this season, but like don't count them out to sneakily win the division. Like I don't know. After watching Tampa and Buffalo, neither team really impressed me a ton
Yeah.
with how they're playing right now. Don't count out the Habs.
No, and I legitimately think like this Habs roster of skaters is potentially the strongest, or at least feels like the strongest come playoff time, right? Like it feels like they're going to play the most, uh, you know, as a tight knit unit, and they're going to be able to go out there and make things happen. It's just the goaltending. I have zero faith in the Montreal goaltending right now to be able to survive against Tampa or potentially even Buffalo in a playoff series, because they're just not getting the saves that they need. And I have their
I'm
season
going to
head to
disagree with
head.
you there.
Okay, go for it.
Jacob Fowler. I think
Yeah,
he's going to ultimately, whether he starts in the playoffs or not, I think he's going to end up being the guy by the end of the first round
very
series.
possible.
Now, maybe that's not enough. Maybe it's too late, but I love the way that Jacob Fowler's been playing. And I know he's really young. I know he's only 21, but we've seen young goalies come in and make a run before. He's only got
Mhm.
14 NHL games under his belt. I know that, but he seems like the best option they have. And we've seen just time and time again, young goalie just get thrown into a playoff series and become the hero. I could see it.
He definitely could, and it will be really interesting. And this is part of it, is I really want to see Marty St. Louis as playoff coach, right, and making those decisions and things. Because does Fowler play well enough down the stretch? He's averaging about one start a week right now. Is that enough for him to make his case going into the playoffs for him to be the starter? And if not, how fast do they make a goaltending switch to him if they need to? Right? Like that then becomes the thing to watch. And what does St. Louis do there? Because I think that would be so interesting, and that really is, I think, going to be the pivotal coaching decision that he has to make come postseason time. It's all going to revolve around who's in net and when they're in net.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't know St. Louis well enough to the inner workings of his mind here. I'd have to imagine Dobesh, if he starts, would be on a pretty short leash because
He
again, no
has to
matter
be.
who they're facing, you're not going to be able to afford to go down too far in a series. You're going to have to make that change if the goaltending's not there.
Yep. All right. I have Montreal's head to head here against the two teams. Against Buffalo,
Okay.
Montreal 2-2, even goal differential between those 4 games. Both teams with 13 goals in those 4 games. Against Tampa, Montreal is 0-1-1 with a -6 goal differential in 2 games.
Okay.
So Tampa has definitely had the better opportunities and the better stuff through the regular season so far. But again, couple games left. we'll see how those shake out for them there.
Yeah.
But
I think those are going to be much more telling.
yes, but again, that lines up good for a Buffalo Montreal series. Means that that series would be extremely close.
I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna have to enjoy it. I'm gonna have to get over the fact that one of those teams would be out in the first round. I'll have to enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Anything else in the
I do
Eastern
have
Conference?
I do have one more question for you in the East.
Okay.
Well, I get it's a two-part question. We'll try not to spend too much time on it. One, do you think the ninth best team in the East, the first team that is out of it,
hmm
will have the honor, the distinction of being the best team ever, points wise, to miss the Stanley Cup playoffs, which currently belongs to last season's Calgary Flames with 96 points. Now, I'll let you know the points pace. Right now, Ottawa is that team. They are at a 97 point pace, 96.60274 point pace to be exact. Do you think they break that record, whoever it is?
No, I think at best they tie it.
Really? Okay. I'm going to say yes. I think it'll be like 97 points and they'll break that record just barely. Because there's too many teams around. Some like who do you think it'll be? If either way, who do you think it'll be? Who's like the top team out that misses out?
I think ultimately Ottawa does miss. Like I think the teams in playoff spots right now are going to be the teams in the playoffs for me for the Eastern Conference. And I'm looking at Ottawa's schedule down the stretch, and like there's some tough games in there. Got to play Buffalo, Minnesota, Carolina, Tampa. That's a 4-game stretch they have coming up. Like I don't know that they'll be able to stay on the pace through that to ultimately do it.
I don't know if they're going to be able to stay on the pace to make the playoffs. That's tough. But I look at 2 games against Florida. I look at last game of the season against Toronto, who's going to be totally checked out by that point if they're not already. Like that's probably enough points to at least get to that mark. I don't know. I think it'll still be Ottawa because it'd be a very Ottawa Senators thing, especially recently.
Yeah.
So it would just make sense. But I think they do get there to 97, but they still miss.
Yeah. Detroit's schedule is really weird. It's a bunch of these teams that we've been talking about, like in the playoff race. They have 2 games against the Flyers, a game against Columbus. That's
interesting.
So
but those are the most interesting teams to follow too. The teams
for
that
sure
just face all of the team. They got Pittsburgh. Yeah, they've got a bunch of these teams that are fighting for spots. So keep an eye on the Red Wings games, I suppose.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting. All right, Western Conference race here. We're 37 minutes in already. And I know we have other topics we want to get to, but the wild card race here really been heating up. More teams involved than ever before. I mean, Nashville went on an absolute tear for a while. They've looked like a team that actually wanted it, which we've been saying. Somebody just want it and it's yours. Nashville been sitting in that final wild card spot out west now for a little while. They still don't look good to me anytime I watch them play. Like, I don't entirely know how they're winning games. Again, all these teams have negative goal differentials. There's a negative 25 for the season. But look, they were able to have they're able to have a 6 at the start of their last 10 column. And in the Western Conference wildcard race, RJ, that's world beater status.
Yeah, that is making up a ton of that is lapping the field in the Western Conference wildcard race. And I mean, try to make sense of Nashville here. And of course, a team does finally look like they want it for a little bit. And of course, that team is not a Pacific Division team. No. Leave it to some team that was left for dead in the Central. And I think that's going to be a theme here as we look at some of the other teams still in it that looks like they want it. They're able to get some wins, but I'm still not convinced at all with Nashville. Because look, you look at the wins that they had. They had a stretch where they had points in what 7 of 8 games, and that's kind of what catapulted them. And it was 6 wins, points in 7 of 8 that catapulted them into that wild card spot. But you look at where the wins and the points come from: Seattle, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Seattle, Vegas, Chicago, San Jose. And then they've lost their last 2 games against New Jersey and Montreal, and they've looked pretty bad doing it.
Yep.
I think the answer is pretty clear. It's just that they stopped playing Pacific Division teams or like the bottom of the West. That's all it is. That's the only reason they had wins, is because they played semi-decent, and all the other teams that they faced were part of that Western Conference playoff race that were just worse than they were. And they faced Tampa today. They're not winning that game. I
No.
don't think they're going to win that game. Actually, that one starts in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Now, the only hope they have is they
I
do
was going to
face the
say their
Kings.
schedule.
Yes, they face the Kings twice. They face the Sharks twice. They face Anaheim once, although
Twice.
the Ducks look good.
They face the
Oh,
Ducks
twice.
twice.
Yeah, twice. They face the Ducks twice.
So they do
And
get
the
to
Ducks
play
might
the
not have a
Pacific
lot to
again.
play for, especially in the last game. So the schedule might save them again. But man, they're not good.
Right. No,
They're
not.
the ultimate indicator of what this race is.
Yes, they are. But you get out of this game against Tampa, and then you are only playing Pacific Division opponents except for 2 games, and one of them's against Utah, which is just another wild card team and not necessarily that great. Right? Like it's insane. They get 2 games against each California team. Like and those are big 4-point swings where if you're winning those, you're knocking those teams out of contention, or at least San Jose and LA. If you take both games against them and you have that 4-point swing in your favor, you're knocking them out of the ability to catch you, I feel like. So if they are able to go through that California road trip and sweep through California and then also handle the couple games at home against San Jose and Anaheim, they'll make the playoffs. Like that's a lot of wins down the stretch for them.
Though that would be enough if they can do that. I feel like I have a
They'll
hard
find
time
a way
imagining
not
those
to.
not just being splits. Like again, the entire story of this is like the conference is going to eat itself. This whole Western Conference race, nobody can pull ahead for very long. Where every time we're getting more games, we're just seeing it condense. That's what it ultimately, it's some kind of gravity law of the of this playoff race where everything just needs to be condensed toward the like 8 and 9 spot. That like final wild card and the team missing it. Everything just, if a team tries to pull away, they can't escape the gravity. The one team that's kind of escaped the gravity is the Ducks, maybe, but every other team is just being pulled into this vortex of mediocrity. And I think Nashville's just going to continue to be pulled there closer. The Kings are going to be pulled in closer. Kraken are going to be pulled closer upwards. And we're seeing it like St. Louis and Winnipeg. They're being pulled closer upwards. Vegas is being pulled closer downwards. It's just this vortex of mediocrity that is just pulling all these teams closer to that 8 and 9 spot.
It is. But I look at Nashville, and since late January, they've figured out how to not lose big. They've found a way to have all of these games be close games and lower event, and they've found a way to do what they need to do when they're going to be a bad team going into face opponents, and they're able to make all these games close. Like that's what they should have been doing all year long. Because you look and say what's changed for them. That's what's changed, is that the swings in either direction, a win or a loss, are now all 1-goal swings instead of multi-goal swings. And I think there is something to that. Particularly against all these other bad teams that they have to play down the stretch. Those sound like a lot of 3-point games.
Yeah, and if they can even just get to overtime in enough of those games, like going, how many points does going 500 get you? You got 9 games left. Going 500 would get you to 86 points. That's probably enough.
That's probably enough.
Maybe 87 again, depending on what some of these other teams do. I think 86 probably isn't enough. I think the Kraken might beat that, but it's right there. And that's just going 500. That's just getting to overtime every game and losing. That's, if you're any better than that, that's probably enough. It is crazy, this race. I mean, I guess we can go like, their main competition, who they play twice, the LA Kings.
A team that does get to overtime every game.
They do. Yeah, they get to overtime a lot. But on the other hand, they've lost 5 of their last 6.
Yeah.
And their only win there was against Vancouver.
Yeah.
Now they do place Vancouver twice. With all of these teams, you're like, they're bad, they're playing bad, they're out of it, they're done, they're dead. But look at the schedule.
I know.
They face Vancouver twice. They get Toronto. They have the 2 Nashville games, which again, that we just talked about Nashville. They're not good. That's a coin flip. Like
St. Louis, Calgary, Seattle, like it's there.
Yeah, well, that's where it falls apart for me, because St. Louis is actually playing well.
They are playing well now, yeah.
I think I could see LA easily losing that game to St. Louis. Seattle's playing okay. Like Seattle is playing noticeably better than the Kings right now. Now we'll see what happens April 13th. That's still a ways away.
Yeah,
we'll see where the Kraken are at. But like, I don't know. Even looking at the schedule, I don't have confidence in
Here's
LA.
here's my thing. Look at the LA Kings home and road split,
I know
because
this is nuts.
they only have 3 road games left on the season. Now most teams would be like, "Wow, this is great. We get to play at home for a very long stretch of time." From April 1st through their game on April 11th, the Kings get to be at home. They get to play, what is that? 6 games at home in a row?
Yeah, and they just played their last game at home too, so it's a
Right.
7-game homestand.
Yeah, that is absolutely huge for any of these other teams we're talking about. They have better home records than they do on the road, except for the
Like a normal
Kings.
team.
Yeah, yeah, like a normal team would, except for the LA Kings, who are abysmal at Crypto.com Arena. They are absolutely awful. They are way better on the road. The difference is 9 wins. They have 9 more wins on the road than they do at home, and also more OTLs on the road than at home. And I'm just like, unless they figure out how to win at home, I don't even think it matters what the opponent is. I think they just have too many home games left on the schedule for them to be able to do too much here.
No, you might very well be right. I mean, you look at the first game of that homestand. They face Utah, who is a decent team. They're fairly good, but they're not world beaters by any stretch. I watched that game. Pathetic effort by the Kings. They were just awful. Out of it by the first period, down 3-1. It never got close. I mean, they just didn't even show up to play. I don't know what it is about them at home, but like I have a hard time imagining that's going to be any different against St. Louis, Nashville. I mean, they faced Nashville twice, both at home. I don't know. I don't see this. This is like kind of the make or break stretch for the Kings, for the whole season, and they're at home, so it's the break stretch. That's all it's going to be.
Their last home win was March 5th.
Watch them beat Nashville twice and lose the rest.
My God, just because. I hate this. I hate this race so much. It's so awful.
I do too.
How legitimate do you think Winnipeg and St. Louis turning on the Jets in the case of Winnipeg, and I don't know, the Blues are just there? How much of this do you think is legitimate from the two of them versus just everybody in front of them is just, World War One style inching just basically as fast as they can dig a trench forward. They're not even like trying to go over the top. I mean, is it just because everybody in front of them was so terrible that they're able to catch up, or is there actually something to these late season pushes from them?
Well, in a sense, for all of these teams, yes, it's just because every other team is so bad. Because all these teams we're talking about are an 86-point pace or worse, which should be nowhere near enough to make the playoffs. So, of course, there's that sense. That said, you look at the record over the last 10. Aside from Nashville, who we talked about, Winnipeg and St. Louis are the only teams that are on the positive side of the ledger here.
Mm-hmm.
Winnipeg 5-3-2, which is like fine, but it's enough to gain serious ground in this race. Like, I'm not really sold on them in the way they're playing right now. They did just get a win against Colorado to basically save their season potentially. Like, that's huge, but I'm not really sold on how they're playing right now. Now there is St. Louis though, and they are actually the interesting team to me here because they've won 4 in a row, 7-1-2 in their last 10. That is actually good. That is legitimately good.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been among the best, maybe the best team in the NHL since the Olympic break. They've certainly been getting the best goaltending in the NHL since the Olympic break. And before the Olympic break, they were getting some of the worst, maybe I think the worst, with Jordan Binnington being at the bottom of like every list. But he's been better. Joel Hofer has been the best goalie, I think, in the NHL since the Olympic break. They're getting the goaltending rebound they are getting is absolutely nuts. But they're on a roll, and they are actually like the one team we are talking about through this whole thing that I think is actually playing good hockey right now. And for that reason, I can't rule them out. I can't say that they're dead quite yet because they're still so close, because I don't trust any of these other teams to pull ahead. They're the one team that's actually making me think about it. They're the one team that's kind of interesting to me. Also, I'm trying to pull this up here. But I believe, oh man, I should have bookmarked this. Okay. If this is wrong, you can get on me in the comment section, but I think I remember this correctly. The St. Louis Blues, I believe, have the fewest power plays. They've been getting the fewest power plays since the Olympic break. They're averaging like 1 point something power plays per game. They're just not going on the power play. And yet they're having this run and they're winning. So it's not even based on just like getting a bunch of power play opportunities, special teams being hot, anything like that. They're just getting into a rhythm 5-on-5 and they're getting goaltending.
Yeah. No, that's certainly what I'm looking at kind of plays out. So I'm looking at March, the entire stretch of March. They have one game left in March, tomorrow against San Jose, because they're just about to start a California road trip where they get to play the 3 California teams.
I say there's that too.
That's a pretty nice road trip to be on. They only have one regulation loss the entire month. Just one. Everything else they've at least been able to get to overtime if they've lost a game. And in the entire month of March, which we're looking at a 12 game stretch so far for them, they've only allowed 3 or more goals twice. Like that's why they're able to get this done, because they're basically incapable of scoring more than 3 goals. But if they can limit their opponent to 3 goals, they can at least get to overtime, because they're scoring 2 or 3 every single night, for the most part. Unless they get to play Toronto, then they get all the way up to 5. But for the most part, they are able to score really reliably 2 to 3 goals, and as long as they can keep their opponents there, they can at least force overtime. And that's, a strategy and a system and everything that Jim Montgomery kind of wants to be running. I mean, it was because their goaltending was so bad that the team found themselves in the basement of this conference to begin with. And so if the goaltending is going to be there for them, yeah, the rest of the system is going to take advantage of that, and they're going to at least be able to bank points. Now, down the stretch, they have 2 games against Colorado still. They've got a game against Winnipeg, game against Minnesota, game against Utah. Those games will be telling, but if this is just the way that they're going to play the rest of the way, it might be enough, honestly.
Well, here's the thing. I could see it potentially breaking right for them. Also, there's a few things that are in their corner as we look at the schedule. So you got the California road trip. That's just great.
Huge,
that's
yeah.
easy. But that 2 games stretch against Colorado, that of course is tough. But you look at it, and I'm looking over at Colorado's schedule. There is a chance. Again, if Colorado plays pretty well, again, they've got Calgary, they've got Vancouver, and crucially, they have Dallas as their next 3. But if they win those 2 games first, like they should do, and take care of those, I don't think they can lose to Vancouver.
I don't think so either.
Dallas then has at Philly, at Boston. Those are tough. They got Winnipeg. It's a coin flip. But if they lose that game to Colorado in regulation, there's a decent chance that Colorado could wrap up the division and basically the President's Trophy by the time they get to those 2 games against St. Louis. We could potentially see, at least for the second of those 2 games, Colorado having nothing to play for. And maybe you want to kind of rest your guys early and then ramp back up before the playoffs. I don't know how they're going to handle this, but those Colorado games might not be what they seem. And then the Utah game on the last day of the season, like what are the odds Utah has anything to play for at that point?
Right.
They're going to be locked into the first wild card spot in all likelihood. So that one might be easier than you think as well. And the other thing, crucially for the Blues, they've got the tiebreaker because they have 27 regulation wins, which is more than even the Minnesota Wild have. Like it's actually a good amount of regulation wins. I think they might have the highest percentage of all of their wins in regulation of any NHL team. So they've got the tiebreaker if it's close, and it will be close. So that's another thing that's in their favor. Again, it's all there in front of them.
It is.
They could do it.
No, I know. It's going to be so much fun to watch in that sense, just because there is 7 teams competing for one spot essentially. Like that is exciting. That is more or less what the NHL actually wants, is that many fan bases feeling like for the last 10 games that these games matter, and so they all tune in and they want to go to these games and all of that. It's just that the overall point totals are so low and these teams are all so bad. None of them can win more than 5 in 10 games. But you know, if you
I think it's a legitimate question too.
Yeah,
well, how many of these fan bases are actually rooting for their teams to win these games?
Yeah,
because you look at St. Louis, who we just talked up as like the great hope here, and they could potentially make a run. Right now, if the season ended right now, they'd have the 7th overall pick.
I know.
And realistically, like what's better for the long term of this team? Winnipeg, would have the 6th overall pick. Like that's what we're talking about here. Like you're talking, one of these top picks if you don't make it. Like if I'm a Blues fan, am I really rooting for them to go ahead and do this? I am because of how they won the Stanley Cup 7
Yes,
years
they
ago,
could.
because all of a sudden you're getting world-beating goaltending and who knows where you could go with that. So if I'm a Blues fan, I'm rooting for it. But if I'm a Jets fan, am I really rooting for them to
No,
get back in this thing? No, I'm not.
no, I
So
don't think any
I
of
don't
these
know how
teams
many of
should
these.
be.
If I'm a Kings fan, I'm rooting for everything to just burn and
Yes.
change everything. So like I'm only rooting if I'm like half of these teams. I'm just rooting for them to just tank. But
No,
yeah, it is
it's
close. Like all the games are meaning something.
yeah. I ultimately think it's going to come down to just who's on a run at the end. I think all of these teams have done this all season long. They've had winning streaks, they've had massive losing streaks. I think it's literally just going to come down to who's hot for the last 6 games of the season. And I think we don't know that yet still. Like
Yeah, no, I
like
mean, like we talked about, there's a 4 point difference between St. Louis and Nashville. St. Louis has a game in hand.
mhm.
There's potentially like a 2 or 3 point difference from all the way back of this race to that final spot. Like by definition, it's going to come down to who's hottest last because they're basically all
Yeah,
tied.
exactly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how all this shakes out.
As
Um
much as I hate this, I get so excited talking
I
about it.
know it's hard not to because there's just so many teams involved and so many different avenues for it. Like it is fun to standings watch it even though the games are unwatchable. The standings viewing is fantastic. And
Yeah,
that's my suggestion for everybody is don't
watch the
watch
box
any of these
scores.
games. Just look at the box score at the end of the night. That's all you need to see. Right. Um all right, we got like 5 minutes left here,
Oh
RJ,
man, okay.
because we really got into it with the playoff races. So, do you want to talk about the subject that you had, or do we want to save that for next week?
I think we can probably say it's probably less time sensitive than whatever you
Okay.
have.
Okay. Yes.
So
The thing I had is also races to watch as the season ends here, specifically when it comes to rookie scoring. So right now there is a three-way tie at the top of the rookie points leaderboard between Ivan Demidov, Beckett Seneca, and Matthew Schaefer, all at 56 points going into this last, 2 weeks of the regular season, RJ. And also on the goal scoring side for rookies, there is a three-way tie at the top there with Beckett Seneca, Matthew Schaefer, and Oliver Kapanen. Who wins these races?
man, that's a really good question. And I love seeing like the scoring races too, just being this close
It's
at the end
it's
of it. And
awesome.
rookie scoring's always so fun.
Yeah. It's super fun and all very different situations, right? Demidov on a good Montreal team, fantastic offensive player, but doesn't get a ton of ice time. Beckett Seneca, a little bit more of a power forward, gets some more ice time, but on a weird Ducks team that's either going to score a bunch or not score anything in any given game. And then you have Matthew Schaefer, the 18-year-old defenseman, which he's looked fantastic all year long. I think he should be a Norris Trophy candidate potentially on some ballads, but we'll see what ends up happening there. But again, 18-year-old defensemen tend not to win the scoring races, but we've also probably never seen one as talented as Schaefer.
No, I don't think so. I mean, we don't throw this word around a lot, but he is looking potentially generational.
Yeah,
But
I
I'll
would
say
say so.
potentially to
Yep.
qualify it, but absolutely what he's doing. And so for the points race, like, you know, it's so hard to call. I mean, again, it's like we look at just the remaining schedules and kind of who do these teams get to play and beat up on basically. I might even lean toward Beckett Seneca just because he's in the West, he's in the Pacific. The opponents should be easier. I look at the Ducks' remaining schedule. They've got Toronto, San Jose, Calgary, San Jose twice, Calgary, Vancouver. Like I don't know. Give me the player who has the easier schedule. And I know that's like not a fun answer, but I don't know. That's kind of how I see it.
No, I think that's fair. I think Schaefer is in trouble a little bit just because he's played two more games, or the Islanders have played two more games
Mhm.
than Montreal has played, and one more game than Anaheim. So Schaefer has the fewest amount of games left, and so I think that hurts him. Although he is probably the best player and most consistent of these three guys. I'm with you. I think Beckett Seneca probably ends up doing it in part because I think if Beckett Seneca is able to win the goals race, he's gonna then win the points race, right? Like
Yeah,
I just
and
think
those
that
two things
that's
are
how it's.
connected. Yeah.
Yes, so I think that's just kind of how it's going to shake out. I think Anaheim's going to have stuff to play for a little bit longer, potentially, and or that's just a young team, and I could see Quinville really being like, "Don't slow down going into the playoffs." Like that's not how we're gonna run this with this young group. But I think ultimately Beckett Seneca ends up being the guy there. This year. That and he gets about 2+ minutes more a night than Demidov.
Right. I mean, that's going to help you, of course, on any given night. Although, I mean, watching Demidov last night, I mean,
He's so
he's
good.
he's he's so good. He's playing really well right now. So, like, I certainly wouldn't rule him out of it. I wouldn't rule Schaefer out of it because again, he's the best player out of this group. Um, but I think, yeah, Schaefer probably finishes just short in the points race and probably the goals race. Although I wouldn't have thought 22 was even possible for an
Yeah.
18-year-old defenseman. So maybe I shouldn't count him out. I mean, he's just doing things goal scoring wise that we just haven't seen in forever. So maybe you can't count him out. But I think, probably just wraps up an easy Calder Trophy as the consolation there.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like there is no race for the Calder Trophy. It's
No,
Matthew
not.
Schaefer's. So the
Yeah.
race to look at for rookies is when it comes to the scoring and everything here. Only 8 of his goals on the power play. And I say like only 8 power play goals for a rookie defenseman, like that's nothing or something. But it is kind of remarkable how much production he's had at 5-on-5. 18 power play points. He's got 56 points, only 18 on the power play for Matthew Schaefer. Like he's just a legit guy, like right out of the gate, averaging 24-31 a night.
Just, yeah, instant top pairing defenseman, one of the best in the league. I mean, the Islanders, I mean, look, okay, where do you think the Islanders are? Like without him, if they had not won the draft lottery and had just, drafted somebody at 7th or 8th who's not playing on the team, like how many standings points do you think his presence is worth? And maybe not just because look, there's like war models and stuff like that that would say, oh, here's how many standings points he's worth, but it's the vibes too.
It is the vibe.
Like it's everything. Like how many standings points do you think he's worth? Where do you think the Islanders are without him?
I think he's worth at least 10, probably more. Like I think you're talking about like potentially a 14-point swing. I think this is
I
like
was
a
going to say somewhere around
75 point.
15.
Yeah.
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 Because I'm looking right around New Jersey and Toronto, and I think that's
Yep.
probably where they are.
I agree. I totally agree. So it is.
Yeah.
It is
Amazing the difference one player can have on a franchise. If you get the first overall pick in the right year,
Yeah.
it's everything.
Yeah. Now we could have debates about like if they didn't have that pick, do they trade Noah Dobson and like what does that do,
yeah.
right? Like, but
That's
if
true.
if
There's a whole chain of events.
if no Noah Dobson and no Matthew Schaefer, this team's not anywhere close to the playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
It has been all him. But yeah, exciting rookie scoring race. It feels like it's been a little bit since we've had one of those. And it's, again, equally exciting just because all of these guys, are going to be around for a while. Demidov's going to be an offensive presence for a long time. Super exciting player to watch. Matthew Schaefer, like we talked about, I think he's going to be, perennial Norris Trophy candidate. And Beckett Seneca, it's going to be interesting to see how he develops as like a power forward.
Him?
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be interesting to see how he develops as a power forward in today's NHL, right? Like there's just not a ton of that anymore. And he doesn't play a traditional power forward style. So we'll see. And we'll see how much taller he ends up growing too, because he keeps growing, literally. Like literally measuring him and he's just constantly taller.
Yeah, no, I mean, we'll see when the growth spurt stops. And he's just 6'10", in 3 years, just trying to adjust at that point. You get that thing, like just growth spurt gets too tall, loses all the skill. I think he's good where he's at right now.
Yeah, and I will say this for anybody who comes into the NHL as a rookie next season. At the beginning of the year, when you are taking your NHL profile picture, the picture that's going to be used on all the websites, your profile picture. If you are a rookie next year, you need to smile and show teeth. Because of all these rookies that we're talking about, Beckett Seneca, Matthew Schaefer, only 2 with teeth showing with smiles. Matthew Wood has teeth showing, but I would not call it a smile. It's almost a grimace. He looks like he's in pain. But Beckett Seneca, Matthew Schaefer, the guys tied at the top for both points and goals, smiling with teeth. Nobody close to them has teeth showing. So there you go.
Interesting. Okay.
Agents,
there you go. That's
agents
the advice.
bring me in. I'll talk to your clients. Like this is the thing, clearly.
tell some jokes, make them smile, even if they don't feel like it.
Yep, yep, exactly. All right, that's going to do it for this Red Glare podcast. Thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you all next time.